Thank you so much for joining with us. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to be able to help you get where you want to go. You know, Zig Ziglar said it best. He said the only way you get what you want out of life is to help other people get what they want out of life. And you know, our purpose is really to improve your life and your family's lives. That's our purpose. That's why we're here. In fact, that's why all of you are here. That's why you're here on earth, is to be able to do that. That is our purpose, and that's your purpose as well. We want you to have a better life. As I've been all over the world, I've been to 50 countries. I've been this way around the world. I've been that way around the world. I've been all over. I've been to both sides of Everest. I've been to Tibet, to Kathmandu. I'm tired. I've been in a lot of places. But the one thing I know, every person that I've seen, as I look and I just really kind of study, what do they want? They want to have a better life. They want to have a better life, and they want to have a better life for their children. And so that's why we have what we do. This is our purpose. Our purpose is to improve your life and your family's lives. We do an awful lot of what they call microcredit, where we make small loans to women, and women only, no men, to start small businesses. When we do that, it's called the Grameen Banking. And what it is that we make these small loans to women, then we teach them how to create small businesses. And when they create these small businesses, we loan them a small amount of money because they need to buy some kind of an asset in many cases. In many cases, they don't have to, but in some cases they can do. And then as they pay that loan back, then we take that money and loan it back to the next woman. And we do that in a small basis. And the only collateral we have is their word that they will pay it back. Now we put them in a group of 4 other women, so there's 5 in their group. They're peers, they work together, they're not family. And as they pay that money back, then they can get a little bit bigger loan if they need to. And what happens is that as they do that, if you don't put your kids in school, nobody's going to come look for your kids. You have to fight to get your kids in school. You have to fight to give your kids a better life. And so that's one of the things that we've done. And that's one of the things that I've learned so much is that these parents want to give their kids a better life, and they're willing to do all kinds of things to do that. So that's why we do what we do at the foundation. So our purpose is to improve your life and to improve your family's life. And I want to go through some of the benefits that we have on the foundation and some of the classes, because I want you to be spending 3 or 4 hours a week going through classes and then pulling the trigger. Now we classes for anyone, anywhere. And we do this in up to 30 different languages. We're a nonprofit educational charity that's supported by best-selling authors, educators, and entrepreneurs. We got over 400 classes that are available to you by successful entrepreneurs and business people, relationship people, success on all areas of your life. Now, the foundation was created to teach kids, teens, young adults, and adults about success and money in STEM classes, because you didn't take those classes in school. Now, I want to talk about the Protege program that was created, and I want to go into kind of depth of these classes that we offer, because we want to get you excited about spending 3 to 4 hours a week going to class. So there's a program called the Protege program, and that program was centered around 4 books. Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen, The Road to Wealth, which was a real estate book. Now, all of you in your lifetime, you have to create streams of income. You have to get your money working for you. You need to find ways to start small businesses. So in step number 4 is to automatically invest, but the wealth formula is you need to create multiple streams of income with small businesses. You need to learn how to make some money on real estate, either the home you own or other properties. So the benefit to you is that as you go through this is a true story. This is a true story how Robert Allen and myself went to 6 unemployment lines in St. Louis, Missouri. Previous to that, Bob, people said, Bob, I know you can buy real estate with nothing down. You've proven you can do it, but can the average person do it? Can the person just getting started doing that? So he said, well, send me to any unemployment line. Send me to an unemployment line. Let me select someone that's out of work and discouraged. Let me teach them for 2 days the principles of wealth, and in 90 days with periodic coaching, they will be off the unemployment line and they'll have $5,000 cash in the bank. And so I did that program with him. I did that with him because I was buying little houses and I was fixing up little houses. He was buying big apartments. And I literally had a problem. We had a problem. How do we help these people change how they think? And so I approached one of my teachers in college. I brought him on with us, Missouri. We went to 6 unemployment lines. We handed out flyers. We had people that came to the hotel for a screening process. We had 60 people that showed up. The first thing we said to them was, we told them about the challenge. And the first thing we said was, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to take some risks. This isn't a freebie. This is what we're going to do. And we're going to teach you how to do this. And we're going to help you do this. But you got to work and you got to take some risk. They had nothing to risk, but they thought they did. And 2/3 of them got up and left right there on the spot. We excused them. If this isn't for you, you don't want to do this, it's okay. We gave them all some bonuses for being there, some audio tapes and things like that. And then the next section was, we told them that in order to qualify, they had to be out of work. They had to have bad credit. And they had to not have any money. So that was the qualification in this challenge. And then we taught them for 2 days about, we used real estate, but it was to find it, fund it, flip it. We flipped properties because we only had a short time. So our goal was to flip it and make some quick cash. And so in this book, it's a true story of how we took those people. And we ended up taking 3 people because it was easier to take 3 and put them together as a group. We took Mary and Nora and Philip. And it's a true story about what they did and how they went about learning about a small business. And this small business happened to be flipping real estate. And they found some little properties. And I've shown you how I've done all that stuff. And they simply fixed them up, painted them, and resold them and make some good money at it. And they flip stuff you can flip. Also, one of the things is that you are going to have a place to live. You need a place to live. Everybody has to have a place to live. Well, let's figure out how to make some money while you do that. Let's figure out how to make money while you do that. The 1 Minute Millionaire. This is a wonderful book. And the benefit to you is that you can learn the strategies. This is a combination. If I was to say that this is a very unique book, it's basically a 2-sided book. And the one side is a novel. And the novel, it was created by stories of students of how they became successful, what they did, what their situation was. And in this one, it's a story about a woman who's got to make a lot of money to get her kids back. She got divorced and her husband was really a jerk. And in order to get her kids back, she had to make some money to pay him off, to get out of the marriage. And it's the story of how to do that. And this story is a compilation of real people that we've worked with. That's one side of the book. The other side is the step-by-step systems that we taught them, similar to multiple streams of income, but how to make money with different small businesses. The reason this is so good for you is because it's a model for you. You can see how they did the systems and made money. And it's very fun to read the novel side of it, which is a real true life story that was made up from other students. Cracking the Millionaire Code, wonderful, wonderful book. This is a book that's going to help you to crack that code. It's a recipe. People, they wonder how things get done. Well, it's a recipe. It's a strategy. When McDonald's got started, they actually sold the system, the operational system in a manual for $7,500. And anybody could buy their system. And they had a code. They had a system that they used. Now, Ray Kroc loved working with them, and he loved the ideas of McDonald's. He liked the logos and everything else that they created. But there's a system. So we want to teach you how that system works. Now, this program that we did was $5,000. It was very expensive to create. It was very expensive to market. It was extremely expensive to fulfill. We had to ship. It was all the weight of the books and CDs and everything else was over 25 pounds of material that we sent out. And it was $5,000 to do that. Now, Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup of the Soul and Robert Allen and I were business partners, and we did a lot of work together. And I basically ran the companies, and they had the information. And they're part of the foundation. This is a legacy project for them. I'm 64 years of age, and they are 75 in that area. And it was $5,000, and thousands of people bought that. And we changed people's lives. Our students made over $1 billion. They made over $1 billion by following the things that we taught them. They gave away over $30 million to over 2,000 different charities. And there's over 10,000 success stories that came from this, but it was quite expensive for people to go through it. Now, because we can deliver this by doing it online, by sending it through the internet to your phone, you don't have to pay the $5,000 or even $1,000. It's not $500 for you. It's not even $100 for you. You can get it for free. Why? Because we're a foundation. We're a charity. Now, you need to study success experts. You need to learn how they do what they do so you can do it yourself in a different way. Now, some of the success experts that we study is Walt Disney. I love Walt Disney. Now, the interesting thing about Disney is that very few people know that it was really his brother Roy was the real financial genius. Walt was a creative genius, but he didn't care about the money. The only reason he cared about the money was so he could spend it on his next project. And there's a story about how they just worked themselves to the bone getting Disneyland open. The original cost to build Disneyland was $1.7 million. By the time they opened the gates, it had gone up 10 times to $17 million. They didn't have the money. Literally, they didn't have the money, but he had something going for him. He had found a way to be able to take his show, and it was put on television, and he made a deal with NBC, which was the worst station. You know, back when I was growing up, there was only 3 major stations, TV stations. And he made a deal with them, and he says, I want to keep my content. This is mine. You can publish it. You can put it out on whatever I want. And they agreed to it because they needed him. And for the whole year, he gave them updates on Disneyland. Now, when they built Disneyland, the budget was $1.7 million. They had millions and millions and millions of dollars in costs that they never even gave to the bookkeepers or the accountants. They just shoved them in drawers, but they had one thing going for them. They had a ton of people that showed interest. Now, when they did that first day, when they opened Disney, they were only expecting, 3,000 or 5,000 people, because they printed special tickets, and only people that they gave them to got those tickets. But somebody counterfeit them. They got a ticket and they went to the press and they made extra tickets, and there was thousands and thousands of people in the park. And when you study how they did it, I mean, they were pouring asphalt the night before, and women's high heels were sinking in the asphalt because the roads were still wet, with new asphalt. They were painting the night before, hours of the night. There's a story that Walt only got 2 hours of sleep the night before. The phone was ringing off the hook with all kinds of people trying to get help, get stuff from him. He finally unplugged the phone, and he got a couple hours of sleep. And they did that live broadcast. Now, we study how they did it. He didn't have enough money to pay the entertainers, and so Roy said, "I'll tell you what, Art Linkletter, we don't have the money to pay you to be here, but we're going to give you the income, the profits from the camera store, the Kodak camera store." And that's how he got paid. And they did this live remote with all these cameras, and that's how they got it up and rolling. Years later, Walt really he loved trains, and he loved these trains, and he wanted a big train. So he created and he bought and owned the train that went around Disneyland, and he owned the monorail personally. And then later they sold it off to Disneyland. Now, the sad part about it is that the Disney family didn't make much money. They took so much money to get this thing built that they had to bring in partners, and they eventually their ownership got dwindled. Michael Eisner and all these other guys that came in later that took what he built made fortunes off it, fortunes more than the Disney family did itself. But it's his name and it's his legacy that's on there. So you got to study those people. And when you study them, it's not Walt, it's Walt and Roy. Walt Disney did not build Disneyland. Walt Disney and Roy Disney built a company that built Disneyland. So the more you study them, when I take my special needs kids to Disney, they're out riding the rides and everything else. And I'm looking, how did he get this in there? How did he do that? Where did he learn from? Disneyland at the time in America, the only real amusement park was in Coney Island, and it was carnival stuff, and it was games of chance, and the games were rigged so you wouldn't win, and it was dirty and it was noisy and stuff like that. But he traveled around the world, and he went to Denmark to Tivoli Gardens, and Tivoli Gardens is this beautiful amusement park. It's clean and it has these fun rides on it. It's been around forever. And he got a model. He said, oh, I can look at that model of how they did what they did, and I can incorporate that into what I want to create with just my content. So the delivery system and the cleanliness and the garbage cans and everything, he didn't invent that. He got the ideas from others. And that's why it's so important to study other people. He was in Switzerland and saw the Matterhorn. He had a problem. They had a sky ride, but had these ugly, ugly, big, tall towers to hold up the ride. And people would literally go on the sky ride from one area of the park to the other. And he hated it. And so he found this mountain, the Matterhorn. And so he got a postcard and sent it back to California and says, build me one of these and hide those big, ugly towers. And so inside the mountain, that's what it was. And then they put a ride inside of it. So you got to study people. The benefit to you is they've already done it. They've already done it. Learn from them because they've already done it. Oprah. Oprah is somebody we study. Now, why do we study Oprah? Well, Oprah started with nothing, absolutely nothing. And the one thing that you learn about all these successful people, the one thing they really have in common is they all started pretty much with nothing. Very few of them that really took it to the next level had that silver spoon in their mouth, because they didn't have that. And she grew up extremely poor, very poor. And she learned some things, and she started doing a show. And her show, she became a people person, and that created a show. She took that show and she doubled the time from 30 minutes to an hour, and she did something very interesting. She kept all the rights to the show. And then she's a billionaire. But the most important thing about Oprah is the charity work that she does. She's got Oprah's Angel Network, and we're donors to that. And she's made a huge, huge difference in so many people. The benefit to you is that's a model. Do what she did. Tony Robbins, good friend of mine. I've known Tony for 30 years. I moved to Utah because of my special needs children, so I'm not in touch with him nearly like I was when we were in California. But Tony Robbins is one of he's one of the best speakers, best trainers that I've ever seen. I went to a 2-week course that there were like 300-400 people in the audience. He didn't use one stick of notes, and he got everybody taught for 2 weeks. Incredible. And he started with nothing. He started with absolutely nothing. And you learn from him of how he did what he did. He had some huge wounds. His mother had married multiple times. When there was a problem, she kicked the husband out. She kicked him out as a teenager, and he had to learn how to survive. But he studied successful people, and he would buy audio tapes and listen to successful people. And then he got a chance to work with Jim Rohn, who's somebody that we really love, and he learned from them. And the benefit from you is that what he did is the exact same thing that we're teaching you how to do. He learned from them of how to do and how to be successful. And he had all kinds of issues. His mom had all kinds of bad habits, alcohol and things like that. But he learned from that, and he learned that he could solve other people's pain. He had a lot of pain, and he figured out how to solve that pain. And I used to go flying with him in his helicopter. His office was literally just up the street from our office in Del Mar, California. And I got him his first Macintosh computer. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Never seen, but he is the best. I've never seen anybody that has been a self-made person as much as him that I've really known that's made such an impact. Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Why do we study Mark Victor Hansen and Chicken Soup for the Soul? Well, Chicken Soup for the Soul, you think you've got to write all these books. He didn't write the book. He and Jack Canfield did not write Chicken Soup for the Soul. They got people to submit stories, and they got hundreds and hundreds of stories about, the best thing is came up with the name Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it was a flop. They went to 20, 30 publishers, and nobody published it. Nobody thought it was a deal. And they didn't write the book. They got inspirational stories by friends, and then they handed all those stories to other readers, and readers rated them, and only the best 101 stories made it into the book. That's how the book was written. Mark's only got a couple stories in there. Jack's only got a couple stories in there, but these are other people that wrote a story that got in the book. So they didn't even write the book, but they were turned down multiple times, and they found out all kinds of ways to be able to go sell that book. And they called it going in through the side door. So some of the things that you're learning from us in the foundation are things I learned from Mark. Now, the reason this is important is because you can see how they did it. He started with nothing. He was dirt poor. And one of the things he did is that he lived in just outside Anaheim, California, and he studied Walt Disney dramatically. And a thing called plussing it. How do you make it better? How do you plus it? And so that's a wonderful class that you can go to. So these are success experts that you need to study. Money experts. Berkshire Hathaway. Why do we study Warren Buffett? Why do you study Warren Buffett? Well, Warren Buffett started with nothing. He created and he read. He read and he read. Now, his dad was a stockbroker, but he probably didn't listen to his dad all that much. He got interested in it, but he loved to read. And so he'd go to the library and read, and he liked to earn money. When he was a kid, he used to go around to the gas stations, the service stations, and they had a Coke machine. In that Coke machine, there was bottles. Believe it or not, we used to have bottles back in the day, and they had a cap on it. And you would just not take the cap off and go into this little retainer, this little garbage container. And I filled up Coke machines when I was a kid, because that's one of the jobs I had as just when I was very young. But he did something. He says, I wonder what kind of drinks people drink. Now, this is when he was a teenager. He was born in 1930, so this was 1940s, 1943, 45, something like that. And he went around and collected all these bottle caps, and then he sorted them, and he found out that Coca-Cola was by far the biggest seller. He was doing market research. He learned what it was that people were drinking. And so he went to his grandfather, who owned a little store, and he went to his grandfather and said, can I buy a 6-pack of Coke? So 6 bottles in a Coke. And when he did it, he bought them for 25 cents. There's 25 cents. And then he got a wagon. He put some ice in it, took cold drinks, and he went up and down the street. I don't think he was even a teenager when he did this, and sold them for a nickel each. Now, there were 6 of them, times 5 cents was 30 cents. So he bought them for 25 cents, sold it for 30 cents. He made a nickel. Now, it's not the nickel. It's not the 5 cents he made. He made a 20% return on his money. Then, through all the businesses, he's used the same concepts. He's just added zeros and zeros and zeros and zeros. And so that's why Berkshire Hathaway, one of its major holdings is Coca-Cola, because he did market research way back in the day. And this is the guy we study. Now, we want to study him. We want to learn from him. We want to learn how he did it and what he believes in, because, on his tombstone, when he dies, he wants to have the word teacher on his tombstone. That's what he wants to be known for, as a teacher. So that's why we study people like Warren Buffett. Robert Kiyosaki. I was on stage with Robert Kiyosaki a few years ago in Japan. There's reported about 11,000 people in the audience. And I got a chance to talk to Robert Kiyosaki. He started with nothing. He read Robert Allen's book, Creating Wealth. And in the Creating Wealth book, it said buy 2 houses a year. Well, he showed that to his wife, Kim, and they started buying houses. And they would buy those little houses, and then they would fix them up or keep them or flip them or do whatever. And today they own over 6,000 doors. So if a unit has 100 units in it, that's 100 doors. And he wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad because of what he learned from his rich dad as well as his poor dad. Dave Ramsey, wonderful guy. How do we study about Dave Ramsey? And the reason we show you this is because we want you to go to the next level. We want you to learn from these people and then go to the next level with them and learn how they did it. He started with nothing. He bought a lot of real estate, but he got into massive debt. And it was all short-term debt. And then he decided that he wanted to study how God did it. And he studied the Bible, and he took principles from the Bible. He didn't make this stuff up. He learned it from somebody else. And so that's the book on Ramsey. Robert Allen, multiple streams of income. Why do we study multiple streams of income? Well, because you need multiple streams of income. The benefit to you is that you can learn how to create money that works for you. You are at work and your money is at work. You've got to get them both working at the same time. We study all kinds of other experts, business experts like Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio teaches you. He has one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. He's a billionaire, but he wanted to give back. So he's teaching people how the system works. If you learn how the magician does the magic trick, then it's better than just being amazed by stuff. Steve Ballmer was huge in working with Bill Gates and getting Microsoft to its next level. Mitt Romney, he's a United States Senator, very successful businessman, and we learned from him. He studied his dad and the things his dad taught him. He took that to his next generation and to the next generation from his kids. Gail Miller and Larry Miller are people here that I grew up with that were in the same state. And he started nothing. And our family's been in the car business, and they started in the car business. And they bought a little Toyota store that had sold like 15 or 20 cars a month. And the first month they sold 130 cars. And over time they bought, 30, 40 dealerships all over the world, mostly in the West. And they bought the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz were going to leave Utah. And so he figured out how to go make enough money to buy them, to keep them, because he wanted to, he was a big sports fan. And he knew it was good for the state. And so he figured out how to do that. And then he grew it and he grew it and grew it. And when he passed away, his family is multi-billionaires. They sold the Jazz to a friend of mine, Ryan Smith, for $1.66 billion. But she is somebody very philanthropic, a lot of charity work. And we've done some stuff together in the charity space with Gail Miller. Technology experts. You need to study technology people. Well, who are they? Well, Elon Musk. Elon Musk started with nothing. He was bullied as a kid, but he read. He loved to read, and he read science fiction, and he learned how to code. And they created a website, and they would code during the night, and they would then the website would be running during the day. And it eventually turned into PayPal, which he sold off and made a whole bunch of money. He took that money and put it into Tesla, put it into SpaceX, and put it into other things. But he started with nothing. Nothing. He was in South Africa. Then he moved to Canada, then eventually to the United States. But he's a story. He's a model. He's a model of what to do and how to do it. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs started with nothing. All of us are starting with nothing. He started with nothing. He started with his friend, Steve Wozniak. Now, Steve Jobs did not create the iPhone. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak created a company. They built a company that built the iPhone. That's why it is continuing to run today. And it's his story about what he learned. And he was a failure. The ideas that became the Macintosh actually came from another company called Xerox PARC, the copy machine company. They had another research, Palo Alto Research, that's what PARC stands for. And they had this technology, but they were a copier company. And he saw that technology and he licensed that technology, gave them some Apple stock, and then he took that technology and built it into his computer. He didn't build the Macintosh. He got the technology from someplace else. Now they improved on it, they built on it, and he's taken it to the next level. But he found a great product and then he figured out how to make it better. Bill Gates, one of the earliest people, he and Paul Allen got started, and he dropped out of Harvard to start programming because they had these little computers were out there, but there was no software. And so he started programming as a teenager. Luckily, the school he went to had access to a computer and these big college mainframes that they would work on, and they wrote code for that. Tim Cook has taken Apple to the next step. Steve Jobs was wonderful at getting it to where he was. Steve passed away of cancer, but Tim Cook came in, and Tim Cook started with him when it wasn't doing well, and he's a supply expert, and he's the one that has really taken Apple to the next level. And Apple's the most valuable company in the world. Zuckerberg grew up poor without anything, and he had this idea and he was actually got the idea from somebody else, and he was building a system to be able to connect people, and he got into a lot of trouble because some of the stupid things he did, but eventually they built Facebook and it became a worldwide phenomenon. Silicon Slopes experts, who are the people that we study? Well, we need to study people that have made a huge difference. This is Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith is, their office was literally across the street from my office. Ryan's uncle, Sharm Smith, was my business partner, and I've worked with him for 20 years. And they were doing surveys of all things. They were doing surveying people, and then getting the information, giving it back to the company. But then they said, well, you know what? Instead of just telling you what the problems are, how about if we tell you how to fix them? And so they started selling these other services, and the company grew and grew and grew, and they eventually sold it for $8 billion. And then Ryan took his cash and he bought the Utah Jazz because he loves the Jazz, and he wanted to take it to the next level. Wonderful guy, nice. He's got a family. I know Ryan. He's just a personable guy. Good guys finish first. They really do if they have the moxie. Jeremy Andrus, somebody that we study. This is Jeremy Andrus, and he was one of the players behind Skullcandy, which was headphones and things like that. But then he found this company that had been around for many years, that had outdoor grills, but they used a pellet system, instead of propane and gas. And he bought that company, and he's turned it around using influencers, and massive. But I spent a week with he and his wife and his 3 little girls in Peru, going to the poverty-stricken areas and doing eyeglasses and screenings and stuff like that. And he's a massive giver. So, you study people. How did he get started? Where did he learn this from? Corinne Clark is, and Jeremy has been in our classes. Corinne's been in our classes. This is a model of an incredibly successful woman who started with nothing. The one thing that all these people did is they started with nothing. They started with zero. And she's now, she was the chairman of the board for Domo, which is a massive company. And all the analytics, all the leaderboards that we use in the Success Money Foundation is based on, we use Domo. That's who we run everything through. That's why we can get all this incredible leaderboards from people all over the world. And she has a story. She started with nothing. And what did she do? The benefit to you is learn how she did it. Learn how she did it. Here is Steve Young. Steve Young's dad was a football coach, and he loved football, but he wasn't very big and he wasn't very good. And and he almost got cut multiple times. He ended up coming out to Brigham Young University, and through some interesting things, he was able to move up and to be the quarterback, and he became a very good quarterback. He later on went to play in the Super Bowl, and he has been very, very successful, doing those things. Okay, so those are the kind of the main people that we wanted to talk to you about today. We have some other stuff we want to talk about next week on the other courses, but the reason you go through these classes and the reason you study successful people is because we want to do what they have done. They've done it already. Just copy them. And then that will be inspiration for you. So share the wealth. Remember to share the wealth. Help others. Make a difference. Make it happen. Go through more classes. And next week, we're going to talk and go into more detail and more of the courses that we have accessible for you to help you get to your next level. Make a difference. Make it happen. Remember that every life is precious, and you, yes, you, I'm talking to you, are a miracle. My brother Kelly had a kidney transplant yesterday. COVID hit our family hard, and it wrecked his kidneys. And he's been on dialysis, and he's only 2 years older than I am. He's been on dialysis. He's had to do dialysis about 500 days, and it just wrecked his life. And yesterday, this beautiful young gal, whose one of her goals was to help somebody in need. That was one of her goals. And my brother was friends with somebody else who knew somebody else and knew that that's what one of her goals was. And she donated one of her kidneys. Her name is Heather. She donated a kidney because you have 2 kidneys and you only really need one to survive. And she gave her kidney to my brother, and it's changed his life. He's just come out of surgery. He was in ICU yesterday. And it's changed his life. My father-in-law had a kidney transplant with my sister-in-law, and they made a huge difference in people's lives. Well, when you see that and you see how you are such a miracle, how this body was created. I mean, just remember how this body was created. This isn't something you climbed out from underneath some rock somewhere. You're divine. You're a child of God, and you're a miracle. Your kids are a miracle. Everybody you see are a miracle. It's just that sometimes we've been thrown a curve and some interesting cards. And the only way that you grow is with getting some bad cards and figuring out how to make better cards out of them, how to turn it into a game, and games are fun. So thank you so much for being here. Just remember, you are a miracle. Your kids are a miracle. Every one of you are miracles. So make the miracle happen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in our next class.